A soft call to reflection echoed across the centuries through Ibn Arabi's words, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." Yet few truly grasped what he meant. They thought of love as emotion, affection, attachment, but for him, love was existence itself. The hidden energy that holds the world together. The divine force that moves the stars, stirs the oceans, and wakes the heart. Tonight, let us uncover the hidden secrets of love, the 40 rules Ibn Arabi left for those who dare to love beyond themselves. Rule 1: Love begins when the self ends. You cannot know Allah if your heart is full of me. Love empties you, so that only He remains. Rule 2: Every pain you feel is love carving space for more light. Do not curse it, it's the hand of the beloved shaping you. Rule 3: What you love reveals who you are. If your heart longs for purity, you are already near the pure. Rule 4: The more you give, the more you receive. For love multiplies only in the act of surrender. Rule 5: True love is not found, it's remembered. You loved Him before you were born, you are only finding your way back. Ibn Arabi wrote that the heart was created to contain the infinite. That is why human love always hurts, because we try to hold eternity in mortal hands. But divine love does not demand, it transforms. It takes your weakness and turns it into worship, your loneliness into longing, your silence into prayer. Rule 6: When you love someone for the sake of Allah, your heart becomes a mirror, not of desire, but of mercy. Rule 7: Love will test you, strip you, and expose every false idol within you, so that only truth remains. Rule 8: The beloved hides himself in the faces you meet. When you serve others, you are serving Him. Rule 9: When you think He is distant, He is closest, because longing is His way of drawing you in. Rule 10: To love is to die before you die, to burn the self in the fire of remembrance until nothing but light remains. Love is not soft. It is the most dangerous path, because it destroys everything false within you. But in that destruction, you are remade. You see creation not as separate, but as one body pulsing with the same divine heartbeat. Rule 11: Do not chase love. Be still, and let love find you. Rule 12: When you feel abandoned, He is simply teaching you to love Him, not His gifts. Rule 13: Love cannot be owned, only lived. Rule 14: Every moment you resist love, you resist your own awakening. Rule 15: Love has no opposite, even pain is its shadow. In the quiet hours of the night, Ibn Arabi would say that love speaks in silence, that the one who truly listens will hear Allah in the beating of his own heart. And when you reach that depth, you understand, the beloved you sought in others was always Him. Rule 16: The more you remember Allah, the more love remembers you. Rule 17: Do not look for signs of love, become one. Rule 18: Love makes you humble, because it shows you how small you are next to His greatness. Rule 19: What is written for you will never pass you, for love is destiny written before time. Rule 20: To love Allah is to love all that He loves, even your trials. And so Ibn Arabi's 40 rules continue, a map of the soul's ascent. But they all lead to one truth: love is not the goal. Love is the path, the traveler, and the destination itself. Would you like me to continue with rules 21 to 40, the second part of the story where Ibn Arabi explains how love changes the soul completely? Rule 21: Love begins as a spark in the heart but must be fed with remembrance, or it fades into smoke. Keep saying His name until the fire becomes light. Rule 22: The beloved will sometimes break your heart, not to destroy you, but to open new chambers where His presence can dwell. Rule 23: The more you trust the rhythm of divine timing, the less you fear loss. What is delayed was never denial, it was preparation. Rule 24: Real love never asks, "Why me?" It whispers, even this is from him. Rule 25. When the heart becomes still, the beloved speaks through intuition, a knowing beyond logic. That is the secret language of love. Ibn Arabi once said, "Love is the soul recognizing itself in another form." The mystic's path is not about escape, but realization that every reflection of love you find in the world is a window to the eternal. The lover and the beloved are not two, they are one essence looking into itself through different eyes. Rule 26. To the one who loves purely, every flower becomes a verse of revelation. Rule 27. If you wish to see Allah, look with the eyes of love, for only love can perceive the hidden. Rule 28. Love does not end when the heart breaks. It deepens. The wound becomes the doorway. Rule 29. Do not fear the silence after prayer, that is where love replies. Rule 30. Love will strip away your knowledge, your pride, your control, until only all remains. The deeper the lover falls into love, the less he recognizes himself. He forgets his name, his fears, his past, and remembers only one thing: who? The divine breath that sustains everything. That is when the mystic enters what Ibn Arabi called fana, the annihilation of the self in the ocean of divine unity. Rule 31. You are not meant to understand love, you are meant to become it. Rule 32. When you see beauty, do not cling to it. Praise the one who made it possible. Rule 33. Every heartbeat that remembers him adds light to your soul's eternal form. Rule 34. The closer you draw to love, the more the world falls away, and yet, everything becomes more beautiful. Rule 35. When you love without condition, creation itself begins to respond, the air softens, time slows, hearts open. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The lover is a mirror for the divine." The closer you polish your heart through compassion, patience, and forgiveness, the more his reflection shines through you. That is the secret behind love's pain. Every ache is polishing the soul toward perfection. Rule 36. When you forgive, you cleanse the mirror of your heart. Rule 37. When you serve others, you bow before the divine in them. Rule 38. When you weep for your mistakes, love transforms regret into remembrance. Rule 39. The highest form of love is not in words, but in silence that glorifies the beloved. Rule 40. When love becomes your nature, you no longer search for Allah, you realize He has been loving through you all along. And when the seeker understands these 40 rules, he realizes there is no path left to travel. Love was never something to reach, it was the essence that carried him from the beginning. The mystic sits in stillness, eyes closed, heart awake, and whispers what Ibn Arabi wrote in his final days. There is no lover and no beloved. There is only love, witnessing itself through me. Would you like me to write the final reflection, the closing scene that ties all 40 rules into one moment of realization for Ibn Arabi? And so, after walking through the 40 doors of love, Ibn Arabi sat beneath the quiet sky of Andalusia, his eyes half closed, his lips barely moving. The wind around him was soft, yet heavy with remembrance. His students waited, pens trembling in their hands, expecting another revelation, another verse. But he remained silent for a long time, so long that silence itself became his final teaching. When he finally spoke, it was not to explain love, but to dissolve into it. He said softly, "Love is not a feeling. It is the pulse of existence itself. Everything you touch, everything that touches you, all of it is Allah reaching for Himself through the veil of form." The disciples lowered their heads. Some wept, others smiled without understanding why. Ibn Arabi looked at them, his gaze gentle, timeless, filled with a peace that words could never describe. He continued, "You will spend your life searching for signs of love in faces, in voices, in moments that pass. But love is not somewhere out there. It lives in your breath. It speaks through your patience. It hides in your pain. It is the quiet between two prayers, the light between two shadows. The heart was made to carry it, not to possess it, but to reflect it. He closed his eyes again and whispered the line that would echo through centuries. When I looked for Allah, I found only love. When I looked for love, I found only Allah. The students wrote it down, but he shook his head and smiled. Don't write it, he said. Live it. That night, as he prayed under the desert stars, he felt the veil thin between creation and Creator. The world seemed to dissolve into light, no beginning, no end. His breath slowed. His thoughts vanished. Only one truth remained, vast and unshakable. Love is Allah's first creation, His endless echo, the bridge between the seen and unseen. And in that realization, Ibn Arabi's heart expanded beyond the limits of flesh. He understood that every soul was a mirror of the divine longing to know itself. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every tear shed in remembrance was Allah loving Himself through us. He whispered, "There is no distance. There is no other. Only love, forever unfolding." And then he fell silent again, but this time, it was not the silence of a man. It was the silence of the universe remembering its origin. That was the final secret of Ibn Arabi, that love is not something to find, nor something to give. It is what you are, what you have always been, and what you will return to. The seeker disappears, the beloved remains, and in that oneness, eternity breathes once more. The night deepened, and the stars above Andalusia shimmered like fragments of forgotten prayers. Ibn Arabi sat alone, though the silence around him felt alive, as if every grain of sand whispered verses of divine remembrance. His cloak moved gently in the wind, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the world met the unseen. He breathed slowly, each breath carrying the rhythm of the sacred name. He thought of the 40 rules, not as teachings but as mirrors, reflections of the same truth spoken through different shades of light. The lover, the beloved, the love, 3 names for one essence, he murmured to himself. The words vanished into the desert air, yet the air itself seemed to respond, vibrating with unseen music. He remembered his youth, the long nights spent searching for knowledge, traveling across deserts and seas, meeting scholars, mystics, and wanderers. All of them spoke of Allah, but few felt Him. And now, at the edge of his years, he realized the secret had always been simple, to feel love so deeply that there is no space left for anything else. His disciple approached quietly, carrying a small lamp. "Master," he whispered, "how do we know when love has completed us?" Ibn Arabi turned to him, the light reflecting in his eyes like twin moons. "When you no longer seek love," he said, "but become the place through which it flows. When you stop asking for signs and start being one. When your every breath carries His name without effort, that is when love has completed you." The student nodded, tears glistening. "And what then?" Ibn Arabi smiled faintly. "Then there is no you left to ask. Only the beloved remains." The desert wind grew softer, like a sigh from the unseen. Somewhere far away, the adhan began to rise faint, pure, eternal. The words of the call to prayer seemed to merge with the stars, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Ibn Arabi stood. His body trembled slightly, but his heart was still vast, unmoving. He turned toward the sound, his hands lifting in surrender. Each word of the adhan echoed through him like a heartbeat from another world. He whispered, "All love begins in you, and all love returns to you." As he began to pray, the world around him faded, not into darkness, but into light. The sand, the wind, the stars, even the breath between his lips, all dissolved into one endless vibration of remembrance. The lover and the beloved vanished. Only love remained. And in that silence between worlds, a voice unseen spoke within his heart. You were never apart from me. You only needed to remember. And that was the last lesson, the final secret, that love is not a journey outward, but a homecoming inward. Every heart that loves purely becomes a throne of the divine. And when love is all that's left, the soul has already found its way back to Allah. The desert night stretched into eternity, the stars burning like ancient eyes watching over creation. Ibn Arabi remained standing long after the final words of the prayer faded. His body was still, but his soul was in motion, expanding, dissolving, merging into something vast and unnameable. The air around him shimmered faintly, as if time itself was bowing before remembrance. He felt no separation anymore. The wind brushing against his face was not other. It was the breath of Allah moving through the world. The sand beneath his feet was not beneath him, it was holding him, whispering the same dhikr that pulsed in his veins. Even his heartbeat was no longer his own. It was the rhythm of the divine echoing through his fragile form. He whispered, I looked for you in scriptures, I looked for you in the hearts of men, I looked for you in the sky, and then I closed my eyes and found you everywhere. He turned his gaze upward. The constellations that once guided travelers now felt like letters of a vast celestial book, each one spelling the same word, love. He realized that the universe was not a place, it was a conversation, an endless dialogue between the lover and the beloved, written in light, carried by breath. His disciple approached again, hesitant, afraid to disturb the stillness. Master, he said quietly, is this what you meant when you spoke of oneness? Ibn Arabi smiled, his voice soft but filled with eternity. Oneness cannot be understood, he said. It can only be remembered. When you love without boundaries, when you forgive without reason, when you breathe and it feels like prayer, that is oneness. It's not something you find, my child. It's what you already are. The disciple fell silent, overcome by a sense of peace that felt heavier than the earth and lighter than air. Ibn Arabi placed a trembling hand upon his shoulder. Remember, he whispered, the beloved hides in every heart. When you hurt another, you wound Allah. When you love another, you heal him. The words sank deep into the student's soul like roots into fertile soil. Ibn Arabi turned once more toward the horizon. Dawn was beginning to bloom, the first light spilling gently across the dunes. The golden sky reminded him of the day he first felt divine love, when everything ordinary had turned luminous, when even pain had glowed with meaning. He breathed deeply and said, to love is to see Allah twice, once in creation, and once in yourself. And as the sun rose fully, its light wrapped around him like a cloak of mercy. The world was awakening, birds calling, wind shifting, sand glistening, but Ibn Arabi was already awake in another sense. He was no longer a man standing in prayer. He was a soul dissolved in the infinite embrace of its source. His final words were not written, only carried by the wind. Where there is love, there is Allah. Where there is Allah, nothing else remains. And in that moment, the teacher disappeared into the silence he had always spoken of, not gone, but everywhere. The desert, the light, the hearts of those who would remember him centuries later, all beating with the same truth he spent his life unveiling. Love is the mirror of God. Whoever looks into it sees nothing but the face of the eternal. The wind over the dunes carried his last words far into the night, echoing softly through the stillness, until even the sound itself seemed to dissolve. The world was silent, but it was a living silence, not emptiness, but fullness beyond measure. The air felt thick with presence. The sand shimmered faintly in the growing light of dawn, as if every grain remembered his name. His students stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. They watched as the first sun rays touched the horizon, turning the sky into a sea of gold and crimson. One of them whispered, "It feels as if he has not left." Another replied, "He has not. He has become what he spoke of." And they all knew it was true. Ibn Arabi was not gone. He had simply stepped through the veil, from form into essence, from sound into silence, from love into love itself. The desert around them seemed to breathe. The breeze carried the faintest hint of his voice, not his words, but his presence. It whispered through the air, through their chests, through the space between their thoughts. "Do not weep for me," it seemed to say, "for I was never here. I was always in the heart of the one who sent me." His disciple, the youngest, fell to his knees and began to cry, not from sorrow, but from recognition. He felt something awaken in his chest, something vast and endless. It was as if the Master's final lesson had not been spoken to his ears, but engraved directly upon his soul. "There is no distance," he whispered through his tears. "There never was." Days passed. Then weeks. Then years. The students carried his words across lands and generations, spreading not just teachings but a fragrance, a way of being. And wherever those words were recited, peace followed. They called it the breath of Arabi. It was said that if you sat in silence long enough, with a heart emptied of self, you could still feel it, that same wind that passed through his final prayer, carrying the echo of divine remembrance. The mystics who came after him spoke of him not as a man, but as a state, the station of love. They said his 40 rules were not steps to follow but mirrors to polish the heart until it reflected what was always there, the light of the beloved. His writings spread through empires, translated into languages unknown to him, yet his essence never changed. Because truth has no language, it has only remembrance. And those who truly understood his words no longer spoke of God as distant or love as separate. They lived in awareness that every heartbeat was the beloved calling their name. They saw no walls between sacred and ordinary, no division between self and soul, no end to prayer. They began to see, as Ibn Arabi had, that love is not one of the paths to Allah, it is the only path. And somewhere beyond time, in that unseen realm where light itself bows in worship, the Master's voice still moves like a current through the endless ocean of existence. When you love with purity, you no longer look for signs of Allah, you become one. You no longer recite his names, you breathe them. And when the heart finally remembers, the lover, the beloved, and the love become one and the same. The desert sleeps, but his words never do. They move through the hearts of those who seek, awakening the same flame that once burned in his, the flame that needs no fuel, no beginning, no end. That is the true legacy of Ibn Arabi, that love is the final revelation. Not a metaphor, not an emotion, but the living truth that holds the universe together, the silence beneath every prayer, the breath beneath every soul. And as dawn finally claimed the desert, light spilled across the endless horizon, quiet, golden, eternal. The disciples stood in stillness, watching the sun rise where Ibn Arabi had once stood, his form gone but his presence everywhere. The sand that had held his footprints now glowed, as if each grain carried a trace of his remembrance. The wind was gentle, the sky vast, and in that silence, it felt as though the whole world had stopped to breathe. There were no tears left to shed. Only peace, the kind that comes when a truth has been fully lived. One of the students whispered, "He did not die. He simply became what he taught." And they all knew it was true. For how could the one who lived as love ever end? Love cannot perish, it only changes its form. As the sun climbed higher, the desert began to hum softly, not a sound, but a vibration, like the memory of prayer still lingering in the air. And the disciples understood that they were standing not before the absence of their teacher, but in the presence of what he had become. Somewhere deep within that silence, they could almost hear him not as a voice, but as a knowing. Do not look for me in stone or story. Find me in the quiet that comes after dhikr, in the peace that follows patience, in the warmth that fills you when you forgive. For I am there where love meets remembrance. They turned to leave, and as they walked, the youngest looked back one last time. The wind lifted the edge of his cloak, carrying with it a whisper faint, timeless, eternal. There is no I, no you, no distance. There is only love infinite, indivisible, divine. And that was the end of Ibn Arabi's path, not an ending at all, but a return to the beginning. The circle closed, the seeker dissolved, and only the beloved remained. The desert shone in perfect stillness, and the words that once began his journey became its final breath. Love is Allah's first light, the secret of creation, the mirror of eternity, the name that never fades. And with that, the story ended as all true stories do, in silence, in peace, and in love without end.